Good morning and welcome to Toronto Police Headquarters. Today we have Detective Sergeant Mike Carbone of Homicide, who will be providing an update into Homicide 35 of this year.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending. Today I will be updating the media on Homicide 35 for 2017. On Thursday, August 31st, 2017, at approximately 4:45 p.m., the now-known Jovane Clarke left his home with his vehicle and traveled to the Sheridan Mall located at 1700 Wilson Avenue. We have now learned that Mr. Clarke traveled eastbound along Albion Road, which eventually leads into Wilson Avenue. Mr. Clarke then exits his vehicle and enters the enters the mall via the south side driveway and parks his vehicle near the entranceway of the mall. He then exits his vehicle and enters the mall, where he conducts some business with a business establishment in the mall. He then exits the mall and then returns to his vehicle. It is at this time that he's approached by four individuals. At least two of the individuals commence shooting and chasing the deceased north towards the entrance of the mall. At this point, only one of these two individuals chases the deceased into the mall. The offender continued to fire at the victim while they were in the mall. The victim was struck several times where he succumbed to his injuries. Multiple gunshots were fired in the parking lot and in the mall. These are all signs of what can be described as an overkill. On September 1st, 2017, an autopsy was performed and the cause of death was determined to be multiple gunshot wounds. Based on the information we have available at this time, I want the public to know that this was a targeted attack. We have collected and reviewed some surveillance videos from the route taken by Mr. Clarke. Today, I'm releasing an image of a vehicle I believe was used by the offender in this case. I'm asking the public's assistance in identifying this dark-colored four-door vehicle. We have learned that this vehicle was in the Tandridge area approximately 1 hour before the shooting, and we may have been able to determine that this vehicle. We also have been able to determine that this vehicle followed Mr. Clarke to the Sheridan Mall, where they waited for him to come out and return to his vehicle. I again am appealing to the public for anyone who may have had some onboard dashboard cameras and was traveling along Albion and Wilson Avenue between 4:45 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. on August 31st. As I mentioned previously, the mall was filled with many shoppers and pedestrians. I'm appealing to anyone who was in the mall that afternoon to contact me at the Homicide Squad at 416-808-7400, or any information can be left with Crime Stoppers. I'll take some questions now.
Do you have any connection at this point to the shooting that happened a couple days later on Tandridge and this one? Because, as you mentioned, there are a lot of similarities. 4 people in that shooting, 4 people in this one, and also it's within 10 minutes away and close to where Jovane Clarke resides.
That's a very good question. We are literally a week into this investigation. That's certainly something we are considering. The lines of communications are continuously open between our team and the team that's involved in the other homicide case. At this point, with the information that we have available to us, we aren't linking them at this point. However, that's certainly something we would consider once we have some evidentiary basis to do so.
Are there any gang connections here? I know that you said that Mr. Clarke was not known to police, but do you have any indication that there could be, any connections to drugs or gangs, and that's why this was a targeted shooting?
This is, as you know, is a very complex investigation. We certainly will explore that possibility. We are in touch with many different units within our organization. If it becomes appropriate to release that information, we will do so. But it's not something at this point. Sorry, I should say that we are following up with every possibility at this time.
Detective Sergeant, when you look at what happened to the man who was murdered on Saturday morning on Tandridge,
Yes.
and you look, or Friday, I guess it was Friday night, and you look at what happened to Jovane and Clarke, as Detective Warden said, they are very similar. These were overkill style shootings. The man stood over the victims and shot at them. Is it possible this was retaliation?
That's always a possibility. We are, as I said, in continuous communication with Paul and his team. Right now, we are just following up with the information we have with respect to witnesses that we've spoken to, with respect to surveillance surveillance video we've obtained, and some of the forensic evidence we've seized from the scene. We certainly are exploring every possibility. This is very concerning to us, and we certainly want to find the people responsible for this crime.
So you're saying that Jovane and Clarke was targeted, but you say that you don't know at this point why he was targeted?
At this point, I could say the motive is only known to the offenders. We are continuing to follow up with every witness that we possibly can. Again, my appeal here today is for anyone who was in the parking lot that day, or who knows these offenders, or who has any type of surveillance video of the shooting, of this vehicle that have depicted on the screen behind me. We are following up and trying to follow up with anybody who may have seen what happened here.
We have information that these suspects, two of them at least, were on the roof when police were inside looking for them. Do you have any confirmation on that?
I have no information that anyone was on the roof.
People who live in this neighborhood, Tandridge, where Jovane Clarke lived, and the other victim of the subsequent homicide, clearly must be concerned about their safety, given that 2 residents of that neighborhood have been killed in violent crimes in the last week. What are you doing to ensure their safety?
Well, I know with the new redeployment of officers, I know we are able to move resources from different parts of the city into this area to make them feel more comfortable. We certainly are always open to speaking to them if they wish. We are deploying as many resources as we possibly can on this on these cases, and hopefully we can try and bring these people to justice.
About that vehicle, you're saying it was following the victim. Do you know how long, and what about this vehicle? Do you have a sense that it was stolen? Do you think it was?
Well, I released this image here today in a hope that someone can recognize it and supply us with information on who was driving it and who it's registered to, so that we could move the investigation forward. At this point, I don't know if this vehicle is stolen. That's the reason for the release. I can say that this vehicle was following Jovane to the mall. We believe that it was in the Tandridge area, probably for about an hour prior to the actual homicide.
We've also been told that police have their hands on more surveillance video from actually inside the mall. Will you be releasing that at any point in the hopes of that leading to suspect arrest?
We are currently reviewing that video. If at conclusion of that review we feel that there's sufficient, the image is sufficient and appropriate to release, we will release that video. At this point, I have not known or have not become aware of anything that we can release at this time. We certainly want to release a video. However, we want to release video that's going to move the investigation forward.
Jovane Clarke, you've said, was not known to police. Clearly, though, that doesn't mean he wasn't involved in some kind of criminal activity. Perhaps he was never arrested or charged. Can you tell us any more about what you believe he was doing with his life at the time of the shooting?
At this point, I'm not going to discuss any other information about Mr. Clarke. I don't think it's appropriate to do so. Suffice to say, we're following up with any and all of the information that we've received with respect to this homicide.
The mayor talked about this when he was asked this past weekend, and he said that it seems to be another case of gangs targeting one another. I'm paraphrasing here, but is there any reason why, if that is the case, why you wouldn't just come out and say that? Because there's a lot of concern, particularly in that neighborhood, if this is a young, innocent man that was targeted in the middle of a mall when back shopping was going on. If it was not gang related, then you can see why there's a legitimate concern there.
Today, my appeal is for some more witnesses. I'm not going to comment on what the mayor described. We are following up with every possible lead. We are following up with potential gang connections. At this point of the investigation, we're releasing this image, and we're just appealing to the public to get us to get the identity of these people. I'm not going to go any further than that. Okay.
So going back to what you said earlier about asking the public to help identify the vehicle, can you describe the roads where we see this vehicle?
This vehicle is in the Tandridge complex. I prefer to get the information directly from the public, but I can say that this vehicle, or the vehicle that's depicted in this image, is from the Tandridge complex. Okay. All right, folks.
Are you getting a lot of cooperation with people in that neighborhood? And is that a struggle if you're not?
No, we are getting cooperation. I used to work in that neighborhood. The people that reside there are very good people. They want to see this crime solved. Certainly, we appeal to anyone who we may not have reached out to, and that's the purpose of this media release this morning, that if they have some information with respect to this vehicle or the homicide, that they're to contact us directly.
Detective Sergeant, before you leave, can you just walk us through what we're seeing here? Can you tell us where these images survey? These are obviously security cameras that captured this car. Tell us what we should be looking for people at home who want to know how they get home.
So this is an image of a vehicle we believe was operated by the offenders in this homicide. There are two images captured there. The first one is from a parking lot, I believe it's near number 75 Tandridge. And the other image is the street that circles the entire complex there.
Do you have any video of that vehicle at this early mall parking lot?
We are still tracking it down. So we have some video. I'm not prepared to release it at this time. Again, it would only benefit our investigation if it's video that would advance the investigation.
Do you have any video showing them fleeing in this vehicle, or do you believe they fled in the same vehicle, this vehicle, or did they flee another?
I believe they fled in the same vehicle. We are still tracking down some more video. Again, my appeal here this morning is to see if someone has some onboard dash cameras. We know that the mall had several taxi cabs, and as you said, many people have said already, the mall was full of shoppers and pedestrians. My appeal is to them. If they saw this vehicle or any of the four individuals that we described earlier, that to contact us. Okay?
Thanks.
That concludes today's news conference. The photographs are available on the media advisory site. Toronto, please.